Hello, 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 and welcome to the Their Voices Matter series. I am so excited. This series has been going so well. Um, for the month of March, we are focusing on the journeys of special education educators. In the month of January, we focused on parents of children that have special needs. And this month, we're focusing on special education teachers. So each Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a different special education educator that we will be interviewing so that way we can hear their journey to the field of special education and just their overall experience. Okay, so make sure you share this live out with as many people as possible. We greatly appreciate it. Any questions that you have, definitely put them in the comment section and we will address them as we get through our interview. But without further ado, let me bring on today's guest, Miss Clarissa Kitchens. Hello, Miss Clarissa. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Oh, good afternoon. What am I saying?
Yes, we are so happy to have you. So how about you just tell everyone who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Hi, everybody. So I am Clarissa Kitchens. I am the owner, the host of IEP Conversations Matter, which stands for Individualized Evidence-Based Practice. I am originally from Miami, Florida, but I reside now in Memphis, Tennessee, and I have been a special education teacher for the last 3 years. And I am on an endeavor to become a reading specialist, and I will have that credential in a few months.
Congratulations. Yes, can't wait. You are a reading specialist. We're just gonna put that out there. That's what
Oh, well, listen, I received that.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And it's so funny you said that. I went the same route.
hmm
Funny, like when I first got into special education and then when I went to grad school, I did a reading specialist program and I am a reading specialist as well. Girl, that's
Well,
crazy.
listen, I need some advice outside of this interview then.
All right, all right, all right. So first things first, like how did you get involved in special education? Like what led you to this field?
So I was, and I still am, an employee at U Villages, which is a residential treatment facility here in Memphis, Tennessee. And working there, I heard, of course, we receive a lot of kids from the school district here. And I had a great employee at the time, and now he's a mentor and a friend who said, you know what, the special education or school department needs a person like you. And I kept telling him, oh, I'm not a teacher. I can't see myself teaching. I don't have a particular subject that I like. But nonetheless, through helping another friend apply for a few jobs at the district, I decided to start applying. And lo and behold, I went to my vice principal at the time, and I told her I'm thinking about coming up a special education teacher. And honestly, it came to me in 2019 at a very low point in my life. But I just wrote it in my Bible, and I was like, okay, God, I don't know about a special education teacher. I don't know what that really means for me. But I went to her, and she said, I have the book you need to read. So I took it seriously. I read this thick book she gave me, wrote down all these amazing laws and so on and so forth, and took the practice the first time. And of course, because I couldn't conceptualize it all, I passed. I did not pass. I missed the test by 8 points. And I said, okay, fine. I was bought in by this point, though, because following the history of special education teachers and just the equity of it all, and the laws, and then being in the school system and seeing how to apply the information I was learning in the classroom, I said, okay, this is my calling. So this is how I'll become a teacher. And so I went back at it the next 30 days, took the test, blew it out the water, and now I'm a special education teacher.
Well, that's a blessing. Someone like saw, the certain qualities in you,
Mm-hmm.
to see, just to refer you to going down this path because like there have been like gen ed teachers that I've worked with. I'm like, oh my God, you'd be a great
Uh-huh.
special education teacher. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that he
Yeah.
has certain qualities, you know what I mean, that is needed, through a special education, in the special education field. And also there aren't a lot of us of educators of color in special education as well. So like when I met you on Insta, I was like, I have to follow her. Like I'm always like, first of all, I'm always happy to connect with other special education professionals, but also when I meet special education professionals of color, it's like, oh my God, I found someone,
Yes.
I
Yes.
found more family, because
Yes.
there isn't a lot of us, in the field at all. So yeah, so definitely, definitely. So would you say special education chose you, or would you say you chose special education?
No, it definitely chose me. Because like I prior to becoming a special education teacher, I wanted to be a behavior analyst, especially working at the residential treatment facility. That's how I thought I would join the school system. So when he told me, "Hey, you should join the school system," I'm like, "Yeah, right on. I'll be a behavior specialist. I'm all for helping kids." And this was my motto. I used to tell them all the time, "I don't care to teach a child 1 plus 1. I just want to know why they don't want to learn it." And so I used to say that this is like my stamp statement anytime anybody said I should join the classroom. And like I said, in 2019, I went through a shift in my life. And during literally listening to TD Jakes and asking for healing for myself, special education came to me. I wrote it down in my Bible. I actually have a whole tutoring name I came up with, and I have the year. And like I said, I set off on the journey not knowing what the journey would entail. But it has been a blessing, and I understand now that it's so beyond me, because I don't have the story of siblings being with special needs and so on and so forth. So I know that this is my purpose because it chose me to be a loud noise, and I am definitely that.
And we so appreciate it.
Yeah,
We so
yeah.
appreciate it. But that's just it's a very beautiful testimony that you just shared, like how it just chose you, and you just feeling like you had that calling on you
Hmm.
to go into that, to go into this field, because it's not, I'll say it's not for the faint hearted at all.
No, ma'am.
It does require a certain amount of patience, a certain amount of tolerance, a certain amount of love and understanding, but also a certain amount of firmness that you have
Hmm.
have.
Hmm.
So I totally under appreciate, you sharing just your testimony, because I can understand that.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say has been like a big misunderstanding of being a special education teacher?
So, in my role as a special education teacher, I believe that general education teachers think that we give out passes for kids to not perform well in class, and that we are then to reprimand the kids for behavior. So, I'm like the pusher and the get out of jail free person, all in one. Where I'm so much more than that. I actually make sure that my students not only advocate for the IEP, but I hold them accountable. I do grade checks on a regular basis. I check in with their teachers through face-to-face conferences, through email. I am always in contact with parents, letting them know aware of what strategies the teachers are using and what can be implemented at home. And so I think in the general ed, in the school setting, I think special education teachers get a bad rep because special education services are not necessarily serviced with equity. And I think with parents, I think parents think that we just push paper and they show up to meetings, they sign, I don't know how many pages of documents, and they let dust grow on it. And so I advocate for parents to then, we talk about if we talk about their goals and their transition goals or whatever the case may be, I always refer back to the IEP to what did we talk about? What was addressed? What did you talk about previously? Because I am in the high school level. So, most of my students have had IEP since elementary school, but most of my students didn't know that. So then my conversations with the parent, why are they not aware of the IEP? Because it's their way to say, I'm going to receive equitable service in a free and appropriate way that allows me to reach the goal as everybody else, no, regardless of my learning disability or whatever impediment I may have. So I think on both ends, parents and educators, they need a fresh wind of what we do.
Yeah, I feel like and education just needs a whole like update. I
Yeah.
feel like so many other industries have had like advancements and things of
Yeah.
that nature, and it's like education, like where is ours? Where is our facelift? Where is our glow up? You know what I mean? And I would say that is a common especially with gen ed teachers. I know I made a reel about some misconceptions. It's just like you got all this time on your hands and you're
I
just
saw that.
paperwork, and like
Yeah.
you said, hey, they get out of hand, you come, you fix it, you get them, you do all that, and it's like, no, when you saw me, I was going to the bathroom. but
Yeah.
I'm going back to, you know what I mean? I'm going back to class.
Yeah.
I'm either coming to your class so we can co-teach, or we're pushing in, or we're doing whatever. So it's like I don't have all that time. And in a lot of schools, sometimes it becomes a gen ed versus special education type thing. In
It
a
does.
school, it does, and it shouldn't really be that way. But it's like we definitely need to work together. And it's like I feel like, it's still kind of that old school mindset. Well, those are your kids because they have an IEP, and I'm
Right.
working with these kids over here. And it's like, no, you're their teacher as well. We have to work together to support them. And like you said, we do way more than just doing paperwork. There are plenty of times I'm calling parents. All right, IEP, this is coming up. Okay, this is how they're doing. What are you seeing at home? What
Right. Right.
concerns do you have, and things like that. And then I'm like, oh, I'm sending the draft to you. Please look it
Yeah.
please look it over. Let
Right.
me know if you have any questions. And then I want to say I only have maybe one or two who actually, do it. But it's like a pushback on parents to, like, please ask your questions. Please don't be quiet, because if you are, I don't know how to support you, and I don't know what your concerns are. And then with our colleagues, our non-special ed colleagues, it's like you have to definitely get out of that mindset that this is your job and this is what I do and that's your kid, so you're the only one that will progress monitor that student. And it's like, no, I'm not. You are, especially if that kid is in a co-teaching environment. I may not be the co-teacher, I may not be the special education
Mhm.
co-teacher for that space, so you both
Right.
will progress monitor the
Yeah.
student. And I want to say I did middle school, so we were starting transition. And then
Mm.
I will always tell parents, they'll be invited from here on out. Please make sure, you talk about what's to come after high school. What do you think your child will be able to do? What does your child want to do? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I'll say maybe
Mhm.
only one time I had a parent like, I don't want my child at the IP meeting, and me pushing back to stress, they should be there.
Mhm.
They're the ones benefiting from these supports, so they can tell us what they need, what they don't need,
Right.
or what they need more of. So you definitely like hit it on that. Like it can and then if you don't have good leadership who can definitely support you with,
Mhm.
I want to say cultivating a culture where we can work together, then
Yeah.
it becomes a different type of environment.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
it definitely becomes a different type of environment. Gave me a flashback real quick. So far in your career, what would you say has been like a big challenge for you, and maybe something that you're going through right now, or something that you have already overcome? Like, what has been a big challenge for you?
So the biggest challenge for me is witnessing students with measurable annual goals that are not attainable because they are not data driven.
Mhm.
Um, i.e., I focus on reading because I push into the ELA department. And doing so, I realized that my high school students, through assessments, are reading well than 4 grade levels below 10th grade, some of them all the way down to second grade. Um, and so I decided, you know what, this is a challenge for me. I feel like I'm selling a dream. I'm a salesman for bad education, and I didn't want to be a part of it, and I chose not to be a part of it. So then I said, okay, let me start being a better teacher as far as my knowledge. What do I not know about reading? Specifically, like I said, because I push into the ELA department. And so in my research, I realized I don't know half of anything, and this was back, when I first came into the classroom. So in my second year of teaching, I became really intentional, grabbing as much as I can as far as trying to understand differentiation and scaffolds. And then it goes a little deeper than that, because if you have differentiation and scaffolds, you need to connect it to the standards. So now I need to understand ELA standards and break those down and make it all make sense. So then you have to do standards of progression. So then if you go all the way down, say to a second, third grade ELA, well, what are they doing? You just use, for example, If their standard is addressing the analyzing a text and then creating an objective summary, well, if they cannot read the text fluently to comprehend what they're reading, how are they analyzing it, let alone creating an objective summary? Because everything is how I feel and what I want, and that's so far from what that is. So then I started saying, well, before I can and before I can be in a place where I hold kids accountable for frustration work, let me give them work that's the same standard, yet it builds up to a ninth and 10th grade standard. And so I said, okay, I wanted more. So I just started sitting with myself after I would do so much research. What am I missing? I had an opportunity and to look at the reading specialist practice. At that time, I didn't know what it was. This was about 2 years ago, but I wrote it down again and I said, okay, I don't know what about this reading practice. I want to take it, this reading specialist. It just so happened that my district last year sent out an email and they were looking for teachers to join a cohort. Okay, maybe this is my opportunity. Did an interview. They say, no, we don't want you. We have better candidates. And I got an email.
Oh.
I got an email 2 weeks later and said, "Oh, by the way, we apologize. Congratulations. We would love to have you." It has been a journey. I can honestly say, learning foundation literacy from scrap, and from not teaching ELA to being at a high school level has been extremely difficult, but so rewarding because the stretch that it has given me has allowed me to see the full scope from learning from a foundation level, actually pre-literacy, all the way to exiting high school, what immature, illiterate it is literacy or literacy gaps can look like. So my biggest challenge, to sum it up, is um, uh, trying to have intervention with students who struggle to read at a high school level, and I am creating a remedy for that by becoming a reading specialist expert, so therefore I can make change in Title I schools for minority children who cannot read.
Mm, that's a lot right there.
That's a lot. Oh,
That is a lot right there, and I think that also sheds light onto the amount of I want to say investment that some special education teachers will make, because it's like, I know when I first went into special education, I didn't have a particular content at first.
okay.
It was just like I was in elementary, took my praxis, did all that. And then as I got into it, I was like, once I left and focused primarily on middle school, I was like, I needed a content. And my reading specialist certification allowed me to do reading and English.
Yeah,
I was like, thank God I didn't have to take another practice. It allowed me to do that. But
it's
it's
good.
so much that
Uh,
goes into it. So much research, so much data collection, so much like kind of like trial and error, like what is working, what's not working for the student. Okay, you have the student on this level. And then sometimes parents will push back, well, why are you teaching on this grade level? And they are here. And it's like, you still want to expose them to the grade level content, but you want it to be accessible for them. So still will do it, but I am going to accommodate the student in a way so that they can access it and they can have success in it. Like the last district I was in, they had co-teaching classes, learner support classes, but in the learner support class, you had no idea everyone in there had an IEP.
mm,
We did the same quizzes, the same tests,
mhm.
same everything. It was just way more accommodations and modifications in my class. So like there was a lot of checklists that I would do. I had a checklist on the board just to make sure you're staying on track with what we had to do. We
Mhm.
did all of our projects in class because I didn't want parents helping them or doing it for them.
Oh, wow.
I did, and I want to say I color coded everything.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
if I gave them homework, parents knew, oh, it's that orange sheet Miss Bashir gave you. Oh,
mhm,
it's that so and so sheet Miss Bashir gave you. And
mhm,
even when we did, what was it? They had like an essay to do.
mhm,
Always highlighted in three colors. We only use yellow, blue, and pink.
mhm,
So they're yellow notes pages. Anything you highlight in yellow, it has to go on your yellow notes pages. And that's
mhm,
going to go, and that's for body paragraph one, because body paragraph one paper color was yellow as well. Like
mhm.
I had to do that to support my students as well, just to make sure they understand, they can decipher, oh, this information is for a different paragraph. I'm not putting everything together in the same paragraph. And it's just a lot. that you have to do.
Well, thank you for that. Actually, because tomorrow I'm presenting, looking at student work PD to the staff, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Instructional practice 4, which is writing, and so I like that. That's definitely a great scaffold, and I will use that. I'm going to mention that.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. We can chat some more. I could tell you.
Yeah, I would love to. We really need to. But I'm definitely going to write that down. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to add that as a suggestion that we can do, because of course we know at the end of the school year testing is coming up, and everybody's in a scramble to get kids writing proficiently, or at least passing. But it's definitely a challenge right now.
Yeah, yeah, the writing piece, it can be a challenge because some students, they just never really had a class where they learned how to write.
Right.
And the last school I was at, like I want to say seventh grade English, that is your last writing class. That's
Hmm.
it. After that, it's like the writing is included with just your ELA class. Um,
Right. Which is so sad.
Right. And so, and I know some people may not agree with teaching a skill explicitly, but that's
Hmm.
exactly what I did. I want to say myself and one of my other colleagues, because she
Hmm.
had learning support English classes as well,
Hmm.
just taught the skills explicitly, like because a lot of times it's like, if we started off with just paragraph and going into topic sentence, concluding sentence, your details and all that. So it's like, well, what is a topic sentence? You know what I mean? They don't know what that is. So we're going over what a topic sentence is. And then we would have a paragraph, and then we would say, okay, what would be a topic sentence for this paragraph? Explaining, you don't tell me what you're going to write about in your top, you know what I mean? And then we just build off of that skill to the point it's like, okay, now we're going to put everything together to write a logical paragraph.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so some people disagree with teaching things explicitly, but in some cases it's needed because it's like they need it broken down piece by piece and not all together at once.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk some more about the writing stuff. All right. In your opinion, what would you say are the improvements that need to take place in the field of special education?
I think co-teach, now that we're on the subject of that, is a two-headed sword, I should say. I understand the inclusive learning with children going into the general education classroom, but I also support pullouts. And the reason why I said that is because, like you just mentioned, kids need isolated support. But not only do they need isolated support, they need isolated support to build minute skills to get to the greater good. And in most gen ed classes, it's expected once you grow from grade level to grade level, you're receiving these little bits of information that you're retaining. Well, if you have an IEP where you need that explicit direct instruction and you never received that, so you're just giving chunks of information that you can't digest. So you heard of it, you're aware of it, but you don't know how to apply it. So in my opinion, co-teaching, um, every day, in the relation to 5 days a week, anytime a special education student is in a gen ed class, I think that that needs to be revised, and that should be like RTI up to the school how they want to implement that, simply because it doesn't work in all scenarios and it doesn't work for all students.
Yeah. So where you are, and when it comes time to do like your IEP, the IEP for the student, and you are planning the placement for like the next school year, um, they if the student is co-taught, they just do it for every single subject, or can you write for certain subjects?
Right. So for my district, we only support in the English and the math. However, they can receive additional instruction in other content areas, but not through co-teach.
Okay. Okay. I want to say my last school we had actually co-teaching was for every subject.
Oh,
You could offer it for every subject.
oh,
And something that they stressed to us, to the SPED teachers, was that if you have a student who definitely requires like a learner support English class, a learner support math class, or a learner support reading, to make sure they took co-taught social studies and science. So that way they are with their non-disabled peers, not just for a specials or just during like, PE. or something like that. So that was something that we stressed. Um, but I've had students who like they were doing so well. I would say, okay, this year finish out in your learning support math, but next year you're going to be in a co-taught math class because you are progressing so well, and we feel that you can make it in a co-taught classroom. I've had students who started out in a learning support English, and I'm like, why are you in this class? Like, constantly
Mhm.
like, why are you here? And
Yeah.
it's like after that first month, I'm like, they need to get moved to a co-taught English class. They don't need all the support that I'm offering in this class. And I want to say that was something that I liked, and I wish more districts offered that, because it's like you're giving students the support, and like those students that don't need that much, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you can go here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you're giving them the different types of placement that they need with the amount of with the level of support that they would need. So
Right.
I feel like I wish more schools offered that, so that way it's like the whole team can then look and say, okay, you may need co-teaching in reading, you may need it for all your subjects, but you know
Mhm.
what, hey, you may not need it for this science because that may be the subject that they love so much, so they don't need that much support, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
I just wish, I wish that's like one thing I wish all districts had. And it's not just a and I felt like even with the co-teaching, I was still able to pull a small group if I needed to. The one
Mhm.
thing that I did was I never just pulled kids that had an IEP, just all of
Right.
them. I
Right.
always would say, like, if I had 2 kids with an IEP, I did 2 kids that did not. So
Mhm.
that way they don't feel like, well, you're just pulling me out or whatever. And even when we did quizzes, we would split the class in half. I always took some with IEPs and I left some with IEPs because it's still a small group
Mhm.
testing environment. And like that's how he did it. So it's like no one is ever looking like, well, you always pulling me or you always pulling that kid. Because
Right.
especially when they get to middle school on, we're not trying to single them out or make them feel some type of way. And I feel like that's something that schools fail to remember as well. Like we're not trying to single kids out, and like even incorporating a universal pull-out time where everybody is getting a small group. And it doesn't mean that you're working on skills they're struggling in. You may be doing some more rigor in that small group. You know what I
True.
mean?
True.
But
Yeah.
everybody is getting pulled.
I
So
think
it's
that,
not like, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I think that's a very good idea. And that's why I said I think co-teach needs to be revisited because it's too concrete. It needs to be more fluid. So like you said, those scenarios can be suggested. And that could be to the leisure of the principal and the admin department. And then of course maybe co-teach should have more options through the IEP, because you just have the option to give the student co-teaching, and in my case just math or English. But what if the IEP team said, hey, they need co-teaching in this class as well? In fact, can we talk, can pullouts then be a part of the IEP? So if you think about it, also the IEP doesn't give way to co-teaching for it
Mm-hmm.
to be fluid. So it all needs to be revised, to be honest.
Yeah, and ultimately they need to also make sure they give proper training and PD for it as
Mhm.
well, because a lot of times it's like, oh, Miss Kitchens and Miss Bashir, you guys need to co-teach, and we won't have you co-teach reading next year. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Mhm. That's another tangent. But since we're
Yes,
focusing on, keeping it in
it's
the
the
box,
truth, and it
but
happens.
that's a difficult situation as well.
It happens, and then it's like it becomes a difficult situation. Let's say the teachers don't get along, but you try to be respectful as possible. But it's like it is like as principals really need to do their due diligence in who they pair together, because people can be friends or people can be good co-workers but not good co-teachers together,
True.
and
That's
students will pick up on that so
yeah. Yeah.
fast.
Yes.
You
You
know what
become
I
a
mean?
mom and a dad in the classroom.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
like good cop, bad cop. Sometimes
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
you also have to have that universal language with each other. Listen, if Miss Kitchens told you no, then the answer is no with me as well. You don't
Right.
go in between. But I feel like also they don't give enough training and support to co-teachers, of even utilizing different co-teaching models, and the co-teaching models that are actually beneficial in the classroom. A lot of times you see the one teach, one assist, which is a type of model, but you don't want to use it all the time, because then the students will view one of the teachers as an assistant and not as a teacher.
And honestly, but that's the one that makes it most comfortable because, well, in my past, I can say I'm in a much better predicament now co-teaching, but in my past, that's exactly how it was. But it was that way because the general ed teacher, or the graded teacher, as we like to call them, they didn't send me their lesson plans until the day of, if I got them. And I'm not, I'm very studious and I want to be able to review the work first. So I was very transparent and say, I can pick up here in bits and pieces in general with the standard if I know the standard. But as far as the intricate work of itself, if I didn't know the story and then I didn't know, the text structure and so on and so forth, ahead of time, the genre, I felt like a student in the classroom myself. And so this is why I said, I'm so glad that reading specialist is also a part of my career, because it does allow me to have expertise in my own realm, in my own lane, and not feel like I'm inadequate, or I
Right.
too much in a classroom. I feel all educators have something to offer, some in different ways than others. And so, yeah, but co-teaching is definitely a challenge. And I'm hoping in with maybe this next school year coming up that it can be looked at on a deeper basis as they try to retain teachers or get in teachers.
Yes, and having planning time.
Mhm.
Like that is great. Like having that planning time with you, or you're actually planning together. So it's like,
Right.
say that was one of the most beneficial things for me too, the fact that we were able to plan together. So it's
Mhm.
like you're giving your input in a lesson, and then also while you're planning together, you're able to think of certain students like, oh, we need to make sure we do XYZ because
Yes.
so and so we know they're gonna have some trouble.
Or
So how can we troubleshoot that?
not only that, it should be data, and that's why I said
Yes.
student work. So one thing I like about this, as I've grown into who I am now, I do everything off of data. So we're talking about reading another informational text and it has another objective summary. Well, I already know I'm going to chunk this text to get to this objective summary faster for certain students because they need more time to create it and to conceptualize the components of it. So I think it should be data driven as well.
Yeah, everything needs to be driven by data so you can back up the decisions you're making, why you're planning it the way you are, why you're instructing the way you are. Have that data to back up what you're doing. But that is a great point that you definitely made, and that's something that I hope and pray that more districts and schools really invest in, and understand the importance of doing that. Do you have like a overcoming accomplishment that you would like to share a story, and maybe a funny story from your classroom, or something that you've just accomplished this year so far that you would like to share?
I think I've accomplished internally a mindset shift. When I first started teaching, I was bombarded with kids don't want to learn, kids don't care to learn. And now just stepping outside and realizing that children are young adults will become humans or will become adults in this working world. And like anybody else, they're striving to do the best they can. And so my judgment hat has been lifted. I feel like I'm a fresh teacher, and I approach every student in every situation according to what that student needs from me, and that's socially, emotionally learning. That's for the IEP. That's in a gen ed classroom. If that's nothing but they say, "Hey, Miss Kitchens, can I give you a hug?" Yes, you can. So for me, a big milestone is having my own mindset as a special education teacher and not being bombarded by the negative stereotypes that have been imposed on me.
I like that. I like that. Um, what would you say that you wish you knew then that you know now when you first came into this wonderful world of special education?
Um, I wish I understood the difference between resource and functional skills. I think with my special education training, mine personally, you learn about the difference between them two, but you're not really honed in on it until you take the praxis. So I wish I knew more about functional skills and instructional resource and what would set it apart to make you an expert in one or the other and then collide both. I think it's a very vague area as well.
Mm, there's so much, so many things. As like I would tell my younger self, of what I know that I wish I knew then that I know now. It's so many things, but that is one thing. Just, understanding the difference of, because some things, like when you're not in it right away, like you have your understanding of it, but once
You
you
can
get in it, it's like, oh
it.
wait, that's
Yeah,
different. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of unlearn something,
yeah.
learn it all over again.
Yeah, like I constantly have to say, especially because I'm actually in the transition of moving from high school to elementary school. So one of the first questions I always get asked is, "Are you doing functional skills?" No, just it's not for me. I want to always do instructional resource. That's just I know my character, and that's just my gene, my lane of expertise. But yeah, I wish I would have learned more about it, and definitely just in special education in general, outside of the laws. I just want to learn more history, and I know we didn't come about until many years after education became free and appropriate for all
Mhm.
Americans. However, I think for me, I just want to know so much more about SPED, so much more about SPED laws, and actually more implementation in the classroom as far as my job is concerned. Because I always tell my principal, I'm a special education teacher first. I'm a co-teach ELA instructor second.
Yes. Tangeray said there is not enough training about EFS. Oh yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
not enough training about it. And that's something that going from being a sped teacher to a sped supervisor and now a consultant,
yeah,
I used to always tell something I told I used to tell my principal and the directors, I'm a sped person first.
first.
Sped will always be my priority.
That's
My
my license.
IEP meetings will always be priority.
Yes,
Regarding students with an IEP, it will always be my priority and everything else will come second. I need to
right,
make sure you understand that.
right.
So if I don't show up for a meeting, I'm not coming. My IEP meetings are priority.
Yes.
You have to understand that. And in some places, like when they make these additional roles, and something I had stressed to the network I was in, I said, you need to have a SPED person in every facet of your network. They
Mm,
should be in culture. They should be in operations. They should
mm,
be on leadership. They should be on the curriculum team. They should be in every facet of your network because we are cognizant of certain things all the time that you are not. So when you come about with certain new schedules, new rules, we can say, whoa, that's gonna affect the related service schedule. Oh, do you know nicest lab test is coming up? That's in New York. They have their L testing. Like, it's like, oh, do you know that's during that? Oh, do you know,
mm.
wait a second. Some people have IEP meetings already scheduled. Let's make sure that does not affect, you know what I mean? It's just things like that are coming up, progress reports, and when are going to be due, whereas you're not thinking about that at all and
Right,
we are. So it's
right.
like that's something that I always felt that leadership should always have spare people in every, I wanted to say every facet of their organization.
Yeah, I
Organization
totally agree too. Yeah.
is so important. What is one piece of advice you would give someone who is starting out in special education?
Oh, one piece of advice I would say that you have to have a Chick-fil-A customer service times 10. If you it's beyond the students. You work for parents, you work for the community, you advocate for all three, and in addition, you're an educator. So you literally wear two major hats that impact the society that you live in, and the world around you, and that you have to be able to come into the classroom and walk out of there with 10 things to do, 10 things that should have been done, 10 things you may have to go home and think about doing, and still feel like you've accomplished 10 things that day.
Mm.
I just say, it's a calling.
It is, and I have to definitely say, like, advice, a piece of advice that I would give is find balance. Understand some things are just going to get done tomorrow because you have to make sure you have enough of yourself to take home, to give to your family or whoever. And it's okay. Don't feel bad about it because one, you are a human being
Yeah.
first. You're not superwoman, even though we have S's on our chests every single day being a special education educator. But I want to say that's something I learned. I want to say it took me some time to truly learn that. I want to say it wasn't until about year 8 for me, or 9, where I was like, I can't take all this home with me. It felt like I was taking so much was on my mind. Like, oh my gosh, because another misconception is they think we're just a sped teacher. And it's like, no, we're a teacher, we're a case manager, we're like a daggone a liaison with the
Oh
parents.
no, we are.
We do all of that, and it's so much. There are times when parents legitimately need help with something. They're not sure. There are times when they are tagging you in to help with their kid at home because the kid not listening to them, but they listen to you. Like, it's so much
Yeah.
that goes on. But at the same time, you have to find a balance to have your joy
Yeah.
and schedule your joy and your self-care, so that way you can come in refreshed the next day to do it all over again, and if
Right.
you have to schedule your fun and your joy, do that. It is okay. I know some people
Yeah.
want to be spontaneous and all that, but it is okay if you got to schedule your joy
Mhm.
and your fun and whatever you do, for to fill your soul, to fill your spirit. Make sure you schedule that in too, because that is going to help you. Again, say tomorrow is a new day, and you can come in bright faced and all to do it all over
All
again.
over again.
All over.
All over again, but nothing's the same. Like,
Yes, it's different every
right.
day.
Your kid may work for you yesterday and today they just not having it. So it's just like, but it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. We have a question. Ms. Tangeray said, "What is your favorite thing about SPED?" Y'all may have already answered this already, but what is your favorite thing about special education, Clarissa?
Advocacy. I have so right out of high school, I was a paralegal, or I'm sorry, a law clerk. And then from there, my whole career has been in customer service. So I am the person that serves the community. I am a community member. Like I said, when we first started, I am the person to stand on the podium and say minority students cannot read in Title I schools, and it's an issue. I am the person to say I sit in IEP meetings with children, with students receiving goals on a ninth grade level when they're reading 4, 6, sometimes 7 grade levels below what that goal could master. I am the person that said, that would speak to a parent and say, I know that you're upset with the school and you're upset with the teacher and the district, but let's talk about what you're doing home. I'm that person. So I love SPED because SPED allows me to touch education. It allows me to touch advocacy. It allows me to support community members and children who cannot speak up for themselves.
I love that, Clarissa. I'm not even gonna say nothing after that. That was that was amazing. I love that. But like advocacy,
Yes.
that's like the one thing I'm like, I got all the time for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh,
I,
I love
I
it.
love
I would have. I'm just a big opponent of people standing up for what's right, more so students standing up for themselves. So, like I said, I wish I had a student by me right now. One of my students, they would tell you one of the things I always tell them, what does your IEP say? Or if they, sometimes kids, or I don't want to talk about the IEP. So I address it to, I read it to them and what's on it and what you should be asking for. Why do I look at, why am I seeing this grade? Oh, I spoke to the teacher. Did you send an email? I don't know how to send an email. Sit down. We're going to learn how to send one, so it's to empower the student beyond the IEP. You want to you want to empower to heal the body, the mind, to say in and outside of education, this is what I stand for, and hoping that they would then stand up for something right, and then somebody else and somebody else, and it's where we become a better place.
Yes, and then also, having expectations for your students, even though they have an IEP, because sometimes you have people, their expectations are low of them. So they're like, well, why do I need to try anything at all? Why do I need to work hard at all? And it's like, just because you work with a student that may have an IEP, that doesn't mean your bar for excellence drops at
Yeah.
all. You still have that bar there. Like I always say, my goal, I used to always tell my students, I need you to be more independent than what you came. I need you to
Oh.
treat me better than what you came. Because listen, I'm not going to be around to speak up for you all the time. Your parents are not going to be there all the time to speak up for you all the time. So I need you to be as independent as possible and understand and know the resources you have where you are. So if you do get stuck and you need help, you know where to go. So if you ask me, if you say you asked me a question, but you really just said a statement, I'm just going to look at you because I need you to reflect on what you just said to me
Yeah.
and say, oh, shoot, I didn't ask you no question. Because one, I remember I had one girl, she said something about a pencil. I said, and I just looked at her, you're not going to help me? I said, I don't recall you asking me anything.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
know what I mean? And
hmm.
then sometimes I even sat there, I said, listen, your lack of not doing your work is not a crisis for me. So you have
Whoa.
two options. You can
Yeah.
come in my room, you can start it, or you can do it in your advisory.
Yeah.
It's not a crisis for me because I did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
You chose not to do your work. So your crisis is not a crisis for me.
Right. And let me say, I had a conversation with a student similar to that. And not only that, I documented the conversation in her file. She was like, what are you doing? I said, because I don't want you to think I look at your grades for my health. I look at them to let you know that I work for you and I've done my job.
Hmm. And then
So,
they say, yep, making them check it. I got check. Yes, check them because
yeah.
you're not coming to me later. Why am I great? I don't
We-
teach you throughout the day. You
right.
check your grades, you go look. And if it's a grade below an 80, you need to go to that teacher and ask why.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? And they used to hate it. But I'm like, you need to know how to do this because I'm not going for you. I'm
Right.
not.
Right. And I never do. I
I
never.
never do. I'm like, I'm not doing it.
I have great.
So
I
yes.
open door for my students. So a lot of teachers will come to me. Oh, Miss Kitchens, well, this kid spoke to me and they say they need this, and can you help them do this? And then I get involved because the kids spoke up for themselves, and I the teacher know that I sent the kid to speak up for themselves, and I'm gonna double check. So then they'll say, okay, Miss Kitchens, well, this need to happen, but it always starts with the student for me.
Right.
Like I said, because and I think with us, we are trying to create a mindset of independence, and it's not for and not any type of independence. It's for greatness. So if that start now, inquiring about your grade because it doesn't represent the best person who you are, then you're gonna speak up for that.
Exactly, exactly. And you have some parents, it's like they may feel some type of way, but I'm like, mom, dad, listen, this is going to help them. We cannot enable them because then they're going to always rely on you for everything. They won't even try to think of a solution. And let's start now. So they're not in high school doing that. Like, let's start now, okay? All right. So this has been great, Miss Clarissa. Please let the people know where they can find you. I do have your IG going across the screen. So definitely let them know what do you have coming up, where they can find you, and all of that.
Okay, I want to first, thank you so much for having this platform here. I think it's great for educators to just remember why they're in education, and this definitely renewed my heart. So I want to say thank you. For me, IP
Welcome.
I continue to create content and for parents to have a deeper understanding of students with a or their child with a reading disability and how that can be reflected in the special education service. Next for me is graduating with or receiving my reading specialist endorsement, where I plan to go even I know with content on for parents to become educated on how they can advocate for their child with the reading disability. And in addition to implementing what I'm learning as a reading specialist, I'm transitioning to elementary school. So I'm saying all of this. I'm doing all this for me, only to show up even better for parents. My goal is to become an expert in reading disabilities, and that's the endeavor. So when we have this conversation next year, as I hope we will, to catch up, I'm hoping to tell you that I'll be presenting information to a panel of parents about reading disabilities and how to improve it in their district.
Oh my God, I have a conference I gotta tell you about. Oh wait, okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you a DM. I have a conference to tell you about because I'm like, oh my God, this would be great. But thank you so much, Miss Teresa, and you guys can follow her at iep.conversations.matter on Instagram. It is going across your screen. So thank you so much, Miss Clarissa.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you all so much for tuning in to Their Voices Matter series. It is every Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have one more interview that I can't wait for you guys to tune into. As always, let me introduce myself. My name is Jamila, aka the IEP Coach. I'm the owner of the IEP Coach LLC, where we provide support to principals with their special education teachers to help their special education to keep their special education teachers from leaving, because we tailor our trainings and coaching to their needs, so that way they're more likely to stay. Okay, so definitely click the link in our bio, and I'm going to definitely share it here in the comment section, so that way you can definitely reach out to us to get us into your schools to provide coaching and training. And please stay tuned, because we will be relaunching our Master the IEP course. You know, I can talk about the IEP all day. It's one of my favorite things, and I love supporting teachers and parents with understanding that. So we will be relaunching that. So stay tuned, and we will see you all next Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye.